Hello and welcome back to awtoolbox.com. My name's Glenn Keller, and in this video we are taking a look at some troubleshooting tactics and URLs that we can use in Teamcenter to gain access to some of the key components and see where we might be having issues. So let's go ahead and dive into this. To begin with, as you're administering Active Workspace or Teamcenter, there are a lot of components in a bigger installation that need to be checked in case you have an outage or something isn't connecting. For instance, we have the Active Workspace screen here, and the Active Workspace browser window is going to connect back to a lot of different components. One of the key things that you can use in this window to try and see what could be going on is what's called the ping page. We can simulate this and show you kind of an error message real quick by pulling up a quick search of a part that has 3D data. So if I come in here and I do a search on a component, let it load up the component and then open its 3D viewer tab, we should be able to prompt an error message saying that our visualization server is down. I'll go to the 3D tab, and you'll see I get 3D rendering is not enabled for the server. So at this point, if I get this in a production environment or one of my other environments, one of the key things that you want to look at is where the Viz servers are. And you can actually see a couple of things here. So the way that I look at this for the use case is using the ping page. I will come in here after I authenticate and change my URL to say ping at the end. So just note that your URL may be different. You may not have to type 3000 in. You may be going through a proxy or a load balancer. But if I type ping into the end of whatever my URL is, I should get what's called the Active Workspace Gateway ping page. So this page will show me that it is able to see where it should connect to the visualization server, however it is not. Notice all of the other entries indicate that we're okay. So in this case, I know that my Viz server should be running at this location. If I hit the back button, go back into here, as an administrator, I could also check and see on my administrative homepage in the Active Admin Workspace, there is a Viewer Administration tile if you have the feature installed. And when you go into that Viewer Administration tile, if the server can talk to those components, you will see the components show up in the display. In this case, it's saying that it can't reach out. So the ping page helps me kind of discern what the problem is. And then I can use my installation and what I know about installing the components to start those components up. In our case, the Viz Assigner is what is not running. I could run this as a service, but I'm just going to go ahead and start it up here. And then once it connects, you'll see a difference in that ping page. So that is a successful connection at that point, so I'm just going to minimize it. And then when I refresh this page in Active Workspace, now you should see that the page shows up and shows me the pull assigner. So I'm no longer getting an error there. And then if I come into the ping page again, then in here I can see now Viz is okay. So if you get just the URL, it means it's not connecting. If you get an OK in this version, it means that you are connected. In previous versions, you would get a lot of red. It would show error messages, but this tactic is available ever since Active Workspace 4.3. Now, that doesn't mean that my Viz server is up and running. I do have another component I need to start. So if you still get an error message, just remember you do have a Viz server manager or pool manager sitting out here that handles your connections. Once this starts up and assigns processes, it'll connect to that assigner and then you'll be able to work, and it'll tell you when it's ready. So in a moment here, once it allocates the resources necessary, I should get a Viz pool server is ready. So I can see that right at the bottom. Now if I refresh this page, I can see that both components are going to be active, and then I can simply switch out of here and go into my author location and do a final test for that search. So once the search pops up, I'll just open one of these full screen. You can also just have it load up here in the page over to the right. And you'll notice I'm not getting any error messages right off the get-go. It may take a little bit of lagginess or a little bit of time to load all the components up. But nothing's erroring out, and in a moment I should see that component, which I do. So in this case, I was able to use the ping page to kind of discern what was going on, but other components in that ping page, if I go to it, include these three at the top, which are required for different interactions with Active Workspace. The file repository is where your Active Workspace Client files are published. The declarative artifact service is going to be custom changes in the panel and command builder. What's called Darcy. There is more to this, things like workspaces and other components that'll get changed that you can pull in. So Darcy needs to be active to incorporate those changes and typically isn't installed in a production environment. And then GraphQL is kind of an underlying structure to help with the calls. And then the other components will be TC, which is your Teamcenter deployment of your TC WAR file on whatever web application server you have, whether that's JBoss or Tomcat or Wildfly. Just remember in 24.12, WebLogic is no longer supported. We talked about Viz here, and then we also have our FMS. Now, other key URLs that we can use in the system, we can put into the URL at the top of the screen and kind of indicate whether or not we have an FMS connection or a TC connection. So we'll go into those here in a moment. But this ping page, if you don't get it right off the get-go, you do need to come in here to the AWS2 folder where you've installed the client. Actually it's in the gateway, so we should look at the right place. So microservices, gateway. And if I open up the config.json in this gateway location, this will have all the routes necessary to check that page. So you can see the TC connection is here, the visualization connection is here, single sign-on if you have it, as well as FMS. And then if I go do a search in here for ping, you'll see that I get ping enabled true. So if I turn that to false, the ping page goes away. But this is what gives you and delivers you that. And you can also basically show if there's errors or turn that off so it doesn't corrupt the back end there. But this is what controls that ping page if you have that enabled. Now, in addition to that, if you're having issues with the FMS, a lot of times you connect clients from outside client sources that have to go through a proxy or a load balancer to get back to the back end. If you're doing that, you can use your host name for wherever those components are located. So if I type in my proxy server, my load balancer, or just the server I'm on, and then the port that I need to get to the TC WAR file. So in my case, it's 8080. Other examples may be that you don't even provide a port, you just add TC at the end. So once you do that, you can add controller test to that URL. And if you hit enter, you should get this page here. And this basically just says the TC WAR file is good. So the TC WAR file is connectable from this location. I can also do a couple of other tests. So I can check and see if the FMS system is reachable from my location. So I can say 45 in my case, 44//ping. And if you're going through a load balancer, you'll have to use whatever the rules are to get to that TC and then append ping to the end of it. But if I hit ping, do this, and you'll see what your FSC is that you're assigned to from this location if you try and get there. This will change depending on what client you access and what FSC those clients are defined to go to. So in here, if I do a lowercase ping, notice that it resolves to an uppercase ping. So if I do ping, we're good. So it's not really case sensitive in that case. So I was able to check out the TC-WAR file. I was able to check out the FMS system using a couple of URLs. There are more URLs that you can dive into, but these are kind of the big ones that'll validate your FMS connection, your Viz connections, all of those types of things. We appreciate your time in the video today. Hopefully you learned a little bit as we break out into these little mini demos to help you out with working and administering the Teamcenter and Active Workspace environment.